All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. This is episode 109. We're looking into Joshua 17, verses 13 through 18. You can see I skipped over a couple of chapters. It's just a division of the land. I'm sure it's very significant. I'm going to appeal to some portions from those chapters, but I'm not going to deal with a larger section in there as it goes with the actual historic division of the land. I think one key element of that is that when we read the Bible, this isn't something that's been dropped out of heaven. These are actual geographical locations. There's actual borders and there's locations because the Bible is a historic book. It's grammatical historical. It is a history of Israel, is the part we're reading here, and then it is the word of the writer to interpret what we're seeing, okay, or the history. Both things are important as we've dealt with that before. So just want to welcome everyone. And I entitled this Absorbing the Cancer. Absorbing the Cancer, because what's happening here is Israel has now established itself, or is in the middle of establishing itself. And the text says that Israel has become strong. That is, all the key enemies have been defeated. There's been a lot of victories won. But what happens here is once they get established, they stop fighting. They stop going to war, and they start absorbing the people. And there is a principle here. The Canaanite people, they start absorbing them into their culture, and they tax them. That they do it for the money. And so rather than fighting and going through all of that, they just tax them, and there you have it. So this idea of things staying the same is the problem that we should recognize here in our devotions this morning. When you're strong, you say that perhaps there's compromise it can be in place. And then because you think that you're always going to be that way. And then what happens is Israel is not always going to be that way. Nothing is always going to be that way. The decisions we make have to be made on principle, not on the situation that we presently find ourselves. The principle is here, you got to wipe them all out because they're a cancer that you're now absorbing into the body of Israel. And in time, that cancer is going to kill you, which it does. But when they're strong, they're saying, we can manage, so to speak, the cancer. And they could. And they could. There's no question about it because there wasn't any problems. But Israel does not stay the same. None of us stay the same. You think for yourself that I can manage this now, and perhaps pragmatically you can, whatever the circumstance is. But if it's not right, it will come back to bite you is the point. That is the point. The whole idea of be sure your sin will find you out is what we're talking about here, because what happens here is the children of Israel stop fighting. Either they say they can't win, which Joshua is not buying, or they just stop. For instance, if you go back into chapter 15, which would have been the next one in the sequence, in 63, verse 63, it says this: as for the Jebusites, which are part of the Canaanite nations that they're supposed to wipe out, the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem is up on a hill. It's always been this massive fortress. All right, so the Jebusites occupy Jerusalem. The children of Judah, which would have been one of the big tribes after Ephraim and Manasseh in the north, it's Judah in the south. So we're talking about a powerhouse in the south. He says the children of Judah could not drive them out, of Jerusalem, where the Jebusites, they occupied Jerusalem. It was in a great strategic place. It says, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day. And if Joshua wrote that, he's saying we never got rid of them. They're always there. There's always been this Jebusite stronghold right in the middle of the tribe of Judah. All right, that's what he's saying here. This is going to change, but this is the circumstance when this is written. And then if you go to the last verse of chapter 16, which I skipped over, it says, and they drave not out the Canaanites that dwell in Gezer. So they didn't get rid of them there either, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites unto this day and serve under tribute. That is their taxed. So we have the Jebusites there, and we have the Canaanites here that are now part of the Israeli culture. They're living in their midst. And Israel's saying, because we're strong now and we occupy the land, this is a small thing. But this small thing gets bigger. They begin to adopt the ways of the Canaanite people. All right, and it weakens them. The continuity of the nation now has to absorb this Canaanite element. And just think about it. What are they actually absorbing? They are actually absorbing a nation or national traditions that are evil, wickedly evil. They sacrificed their own children. They didn't have this same adherence to the law. Their practices were immoral. Their religions were immoral. And rather than getting that out of the Israeli system, out of the culture, now it is being absorbed. And that's why I called it absorbing the cancer. Because right now you're saying, well, I absorbed the cancer, but my body's strong, so I can manage it. It will finally catch up with you, is the point. And that's how this starts in the section that I wanted us to read today. But it says in verse 12 of chapter 17, in the same line, it says, yet the children of Manasseh, and here again, Manasseh and Ephraim and Manasseh are these powerhouse nations in the north. These tribes are huge. They're not little tribes. I mean, these are huge tribes, lots of soldiers, lots of resources here. And so when it talks about Judah not driving out the Jebusites in the south, and now Manasseh here in the north, this is trouble, because these nations had the muscle to actually do it if they would have just followed through. It says that the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, which were listed above, but the Canaanites would dwell in that land. And there it is again. We're going to learn more about this, but I just want to set this up in your mind as we consider what's happening here. Great victories were won. The land did rest from war, but we have these bits and pieces, so to speak, sometimes not so many bits and pieces, or loose ends that are still loose, which tells us this. I know in the past, my sister said that it says wholly followed. I'll have to look. I didn't look up in other places, but she said it's in there 6 times. In the passage we read, when it is reference to Caleb, I only found 4. I mean, it's got to be a couple other places where it's mentioned as well. But you have individuals who stand as an example for others. And when it says, and now stay with me on this, when it says that Caleb wholly followed the Lord, when it says that, within the context of what he was obligated to do, all right, Caleb wholly followed the Lord. But was Caleb a sinner saved by grace just like the rest of us? So in 100% of the way, because he still got the old nature, it could be said of Caleb that he wholly followed the Lord in the orders he was given, in the responsibilities that he bore. But as a man, I mean, did he have to confess his sins because believing that the Lord is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness? Did Daniel, where there's nothing ever bad said about Daniel, did he have to do the same thing? Did Joseph, where there's never anything said bad about him, did he have to do that as well? Within the scope of redemptive history and what God wants to point out about these individuals, within what God tasked him to do, he wholly followed the Lord. But as a man, he's a sinner just like the rest of us. It's interesting that it says that Caleb wholly followed the Lord within that scope, but Moses didn't. Is that amazing? Think about it. It never is going to say that Moses wholly followed the Lord, but it says that about Caleb. I think that's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Because we would say, oh no, he did not wholly follow the Lord because God tasked him to do something, just like Caleb was tasked, but he hit the rock twice rather than speaking to it. So in that regard, he did not wholly follow the Lord. The way we look at this, we just have to temper it. This is why Paul says he does not judge himself. The Apostle Paul says he does not judge himself, and he thinks it's a light thing that the Corinthian church judges him and says so many mean things about him. He says he's leaving the judgment of his own life up to the Lord, who's going to be the righteous and just judge. So when we read these things, we have to read them within that framework, which is simply to say this. When it comes to the nation of Israel and individuals, but particularly the nation, they only have ever obeyed partially. Only ever obeyed partially. It was never 100%. And for us, because we have the old nature, it's never for us 100%. Because it's short of glorification when the old man is going to be eradicated from us. We are in the war of our life, fighting against the old man, fighting against the adversary, fighting against the influences of the world. We're in the mix of this, and we don't live perfect lives. All we're able to do is obey partially. Moses is a far better example in that regard. Moses, listen, is a better example to us theologically than Caleb would be, because we may in an instance wholly follow the Lord. That's true. But nobody wholly follows the Lord. The only one that ever did that was the Lord Jesus Christ, who is God manifest in the flesh. So anyway, when we see this about Israel, they were not able to do it because they did not, their obedience is always partial. It's a great illustration. We need to understand that we are people we are broken people. That's what I wanted to say. He only uses broken people. I hear people talk about saints like somehow we're up on a pedestal or something, or people think they walk around like, the better than I thing, or the accusations, and I say false accusations. Of all the people I've heard, and all these people of all these, they take all these polls about why they don't go to the church, and they say the church is full of hypocrites. That whole idea is so messed up, technical terms. As if the people that are saying that the church is full of hypocrites have the high ground. Like they're not. Like when they were in the church, they were pure as the driven snow. No, the one that they're polling is a broken person too, and a hypocrite. We are all fallen people. We all have the old nature. This stuff these are matters of opinion. Anybody can point at anybody and say, look what he did, because undoubtedly it's true or close. We're not perfect, right? That's why Spurgeon, he's got that great line. Spurgeon's got that great line that when somebody, and I can only paraphrase it, but when somebody points at him and says how bad a guy he is, like it just these terrible accusations, and I mean he was even attacked by his brother. I mean, there's all these guys that came after Charles Haddon Spurgeon all the time he's in the ministry, because he was a very influential man, and what he said meant a lot. So he had a lot of enemies. Spurgeon did. But basically what he said when all these people were coming after him and they were calling him all names and ridiculing him and just deriding him and speaking so harshly of him, he says, if only they knew how bad I was, they'd understand that what they're saying is hardly anything. See, that's the better approach to things. You've heard me say that before. That's the way we see this. Oh, no, I'm being offended. No. Anything they say about you is undoubtedly, if it's not true in a physical way, it's true in an internal way, because we are broken. See, that's not what we don't want to talk about that, but that keeps us on an even keel. It keeps us from being prideful. It makes us thankful for everything God has done for us, right? That's it. And I'm saying that from a guy that enjoys life, okay? But that's really who we are. That's why you can't walk around with your nose in the air and raise your hand and say, oh, God, I'm so glad I'm not like that publican over there. Oh, I can't believe I'm like him. Oh, yeah, Pharisee? Yeah, that guy's going to heaven. You're not. Oh, yeah, but I have my religious outfit on, and I've been to school, and I have my doctor's degree, and I sit in the chief seats in the front of the synagogue, and I teach the word of God, and the people come to me for counsel and wisdom. And who's this publican over here, this poor guy who's just crying out, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner? You know how that story goes that Christ speaks of. Yeah. The guy over there that the world says is, what's he good for? Is God said he's the victorious one. You see, I'm just trying to look at the fact that we have an illustration here by way of the nation that these folks are broken. They're still God's covenant people. But obedience is only always partial. It's only partial. And we can't do anything better than partial. We could do our dead level best, but we cannot surpass that. We can have great days, but we have the old nature. And that's what we see here. So their obedience is only partial. And then it goes on to this, in verse 13. Yet it came to pass when the children of Israel were waxing strong, and there it is. They put the Canaanites to tribute, but did not drive did not utterly drive them out. This is just an issue of greed. They're going to tax these people, and they're going to say, hey, it's good. It's going to be good for us because we're going to take Canaanite money. I mean, that's what this is all about, taxation. He says, listen, if we can't drive them out, we're just going to tax them. We're going to take a portion of their grain. We're going to take a portion of their animals. We're going to tax them. We're just like any government does. And we're going to do it to these people that God commanded Moses to tell us to drive them out. Well, these tribes, once they got divided, were starting to make decisions on their own. Remember all those princes that made deals? These guys are now leading their tribes. Yeah. And they're making decisions like businessmen, not like Joshua and Moses. That's all that's happening here. These guys are not warriors. The warrior was Joshua, and they're saying, man, I'm so glad that things are calmed down now that we can get our government in order. And rather than pursuing what they need to do, they begin to settle in and sit in their chairs, and now we're just going to tax the enemy rather than doing what a military man needs to do, which is what Joshua said and Moses said. And they're just echoing the words of God. And then you can see it here in this next section. When things become normative, things are becoming normative. We're not going to drive them out. Hey, when I say it's only partial, that doesn't mean you don't stay in the fight. Don't make me say that. I'm just saying that that's the best we could do, but we need to stay in the fight every day. And then it says this, verse 14, the children of Joseph, it's interesting here, the children of Joseph is 2 tribes, right? And there's only 12 pieces of property because the Levites don't get any, and the tribe of Joseph is 2. It's Ephraim and Manasseh, the 2 boys of Joseph. That's where you get the 12 tribes of Israel, which is always 13. It's just the Levites don't have any property because they make a living around the service of the tabernacle in the temple. All right, but there's 12 pieces of property, but there's always 13 tribes. Okay. So it says the children of Joseph spake unto Joshua, that's Ephraim and Manasseh, these huge powerhouse nations in the north, especially Ephraim. Sometimes the Bible only says Ephraim because it's so big and so powerful a nation, all right, of the tribes of Israel. It says, and the children of Joseph spake unto Joshua, saying, why hast thou given me but one lot and one portion to inherit? Everybody got one lot. You got Ephraim and you got Manasseh, and they're saying, listen, look at us. Look who we are. Oh man, I could just hear these guys coming. Listen, we're bigger. We deserve more. You can hear this from the princes of these big nations they look over there at Gad and Ishkar, and they look at these smaller nations, Benjamin, these little pieces of property. We're Ephraim and Manasseh. We're coming. And why did we just get one piece of property? When everybody got one piece of property, but we should have more. Yeah, go home. No, that's not what he says. It's interesting here what he says. He puts it right back on them. I love this. I love Joshua. He puts it right back on them. So here's the commander who's up in years. He's old now. It says stricken in years. And here come these head honchos from Ephraim and Manasseh, and they're saying, hey, how come we only got this little piece of land, which compared to everybody else was gigantic? He says, why hast thou given me but one lot and one portion of inheritance, seeing I'm a great people? Yeah. If I do say so myself, that we're a great people as opposed to some of these smaller tribes. He says, seeing I'm a great people, for as much as the Lord hath blessed me hitherto. Yeah, I mean, he has blessed them, and we're a great nation. So, hey, how about some more property? Joshua comes back. He says, and Joshua answered them, if thou be a great people, he doesn't say they're a great people. If you really are who you say you are, then let's draw on that power as a great people. If you really are who you say you are, get thee up to the wood country. Get up on the mountains into the forests that grow in the mountains there. The wood country. And basically this is just a part of Israel, which it's in the mountains, and it's got these big trees on it and tremendous natural resources. Essentially, what the commentators say is, listen, you have pieces of your property that you still could utilize. It's just in the mountains, and it's got these high trees, these big trees on it. Now you got to go up there, you got to cut the trees down, and you can build with the timber, right? And you can clear ground so you can grow things on. So all that's happening is you have some more work to do in the mountain area, all right, where these big trees are going. He says, go up into the mountains, up into the woods, all right? He said, get thee up to the wood country, cut down for thyself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the giants. And by the way, the Perizzites are up there, and the commentators, I didn't look to see where they got this, but apparently, when you read the comments, these Perizzites they use the word savage. These are like savage people. Like, you're going to have your hands full. Now, not that you can't defeat them, but they're a rough bunch up there in the mountains. And the giants who have been driven out of their cities because of what Joshua did with the Anakims and Caleb did, all right, wiping out the Anakims there in Hebron, and the ones that ran for their lives, they're living in the caves up there in the mountains in the wood country. So get up there. Go clear the land, and while you're in the process of clearing the land, you're going to have to defeat the Perizzites and those giants that are up there. No wonder. They're just, what they're looking for is they're just looking for more beachfront property. They're not looking for trees in the mountains and adversaries up in the trees in the mountains. That's not where they're looking. See? And that's what Joshua says. Well, get up there and take care of that. He says, if Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee. If where you are right now is just too small, then go do that. All right? And it says, and the children of Joseph said, the hill is not enough for us. And all the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley, there's still Canaanites in the valley, they have chariots of iron. And see, this is back to the chariots. And in the valley, in a flat land, is where you can run horses and chariots. So this big tribe of Manasseh says, we're great. And he says, well, go up in the mountains and take care of the Perizzites and the giants there. And then they're saying, well, in the valley, we still have the Canaanites. They have iron chariots. It says, both they who are of Beth Shean and her towns, they who are of the valley of Jezreel. He says, we still have enemy there with chariots, which I said were the Abram tanks of the day, which Joshua's already defeated in the Northern Confederacy, which these guys alive now had seen happen. Now it's up to you, Manasseh, to square this away for the land that belongs to you, because the promise is made to you and your children to go up there and defeat them too. And Joshua spoke even to the house of Joseph, even to Ephraim and to Manasseh. See, there they are. Those are the two boys. He's talking to the leaders of these two tribes as they've got the land divided amongst them. And he says, there is property for you, but you're not taking it because it's still occupied by the enemy. He starts this all out by saying, if you are a great nation, if you are a great people the way you say you are, then go take care of this. All right? It was loaded after they came that way. Well, if you can't do that, then go do this. You see, he says, and Joshua spake unto the house of Joseph, even to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, thou art a great people, and hast great power. Thou shalt not have one lot only, but the mountain shall be thine, for it is a wood, and thou shalt cut it down, and outgoing of it shall be thine, for thou shalt drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong. Yep, you're going to get that property too. You're going to have you'll get a place to expand, and he encourages them to go after it and to defeat them. And and I guess I'll just stop there. All right. What a passage of scripture. The Bible has so much to tell us, so many things that you factor in. You say to yourself, well, they disobeyed. I mean, remember, what we're looking at here in the Old Testament is like a picture of our lives as Christians. And so there's overlap, but I mean, I'm not going to make an immediate connection here, but the Old Testament is a picture and type of the way we live spiritually. We're supposed to be in the battle. They were in the battle. Like, we're not in the battle. See, I say those things. This is why people don't like coming to church. Oh, they say, well, I'm in the battle. Well, have you driven out everything? And be honest with yourself. Have you driven out all of the giants in the land? Everything. And the answer to that is the best to your knowledge, perhaps. But tomorrow I could ask you that again, and you're going to say, no, a giant came up and got me. You see, there we have it. That is the illustration. Because we are fallen people. That is why we have to live every day in the Spirit, every day filled with the Word, every day filled with the Spirit. Because if that does not happen, then every day the giants and the Perizzites that live inside of us and the giants and the parasites, the savages of the world, and the adversary who is a savage, who is against us, is going to occupy a property that would enable us to expand our Christian lives, that would be a resource for us there. Let me say it that way. That's what's going on. And some days we have good days, and some days we have bad days. That's just the facts of the matter. And that's why every day we depend upon the Lord. Every day we do. And if I walk in the flesh, then I'm gonna be defeated. So that's all I'm trying to say here. This is only partial, and we are only going to do what we can do partially. I mean, when we look across our lives, because it is the grace of God is the only righteousness we have. Everything else we have to contribute is just wood, hay, and stubble. It's filthy rags. That's all. We don't have anything to offer. This points us. This material, as tough as it is, points us in the right direction to examine ourselves and to consider ourselves in the proper light and know that we must lean every day upon the Lord. All right. That was a little, I don't know. That was more, I don't know, pointed maybe. I don't know. Okay. Well, the Lord bless you. And let's see. There's 24 chapters in Joshua. And I didn't hit everything because there's a lot of just cities, properties, and boundaries here. But there's only 24 chapters, and we're going to start 18. So this is Wednesday. And just the Lord bless you. What a time to be alive, right? Okay. Lord bless you. You have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. We'll see you. Bye.